Celebrity gossip, crazy headlines, and cute animal pics. Editor-in-Chief Ben Smith says they're creating the front page of the future.
Ben Smith is a pioneer in digital journalism. He launched New York's first political blog, posting news in real time and creating a groundbreaking section where readers could comment. He then became the senior political writer for Politico. He's now editor-in-chief of BuzzFeed.com, a website known for creating lists. It's now expanding coverage of serious news.
每一场技术革命都会催生出新的媒体变革。在过去5年中 ，BuzzFeed 是这场新革命的代表之一。在纽约，我们参观了 BuzzFeed 颇有嬉皮风格的编辑室，他们的每间会议室都是以流行明星的名字命名的。在一间叫 Beyonce 的房间里，我见到了 BuzzFeed 的总编辑 Ben Smith。
Let's start from the year 2011.
Okay.
You joined BuzzFeed. Why did you make a decision at that time?
You know, as a journalist, I was covering politics, American politics, and if you're covering politics at that time, and I had a blog, the blogs were very important. They were kind of the center of the universe and had caused all this trouble for newspapers. They were faster, and they were free. And in 2009, 2010, if you were writing one of these blogs, you could just feel all the energy move over to Twitter. And as a writer, you wanted to break news and see it, you know, travel on Twitter and see people share it. As a consumer, if you were obsessed with the very small, every moment politics, you would learn about it first from Twitter. And having a website, having started to feel in a way like having a newspaper, like, we got to write a story to like fill this, to put something on the page, but that the real kind of energy was on the social platform. And BuzzFeed, actually, which I barely knew about at the same time, was doing fun, entertaining content and really thinking about what will people share on Facebook and what's the kind of really online entertainment that people like to share. And so when Jonah kind of explained to me, basically, that, you know, that sort of theory of the world, it was more abstract than the way I was thinking, but I was also and I think a lot of journalists had been thinking, okay, like my reader is someone who opens their phone or opens their computer then and opens twitter.com. They don't go to your website. And so to have a media organization that thinks primarily about these social platforms is a huge advantage.
So when you come here, so what's your impression on the whole editorial team at that time?
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, the editorial team, I think, was 7 or 8 people at the time. But they weren't, they were incredibly talented and really saw themselves like scientists in a laboratory. They didn't think of themselves really as being in the media business. They thought of themselves as experimenting and learning. For better and for worse, there were no rules about, well, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. They were just playing and experimenting. We've tried to keep a lot of that experimental culture while also trying to have some standards.
Maybe which hardest period for you?
As somebody who got a lot of personally energy out of breaking news personally every day and talking to hundreds of, constantly talking to sources and causing trouble yourself, that's something where learning to take pride in other people's work and to sort of pull yourself back and to not constantly meddle in the small things, but to try to hire talented people and turn them loose and help them when you can. Took a little adjustment for me. And I still, I kind of want to, this morning, I was like, I should write a story about how, the mayor of New York is fighting Uber, and here's my theory about it. And it's maybe that's, really a blog item from 2010, and, nobody wants that story now.
And you focus on the politics. So, for you, during the past 4 years, what's the biggest change in American politics? Yeah.
I think there have been kind of, technical changes in the way it's conducted. I think that the people have been saying for 15 years that the internet will be the main place that politics takes place. And I think in 2012 you saw the inside conversation, the conversation among writers and journalists and politicians move over to Twitter really totally. And the newspapers didn't matter anymore, and television and cable television didn't matter so much for that. Actual humans are going to be getting most of their news, particularly from Facebook. And persuasion, and people will change their minds based on what's happening on Facebook, and more than TV. And I think that will be the biggest change this cycle.
Yeah. For your point of view, how the BuzzFeed, the style, influenced the political circle?
Oh yeah, I think politics is the media business in America. Like what politicians do is they put out videos, they put out words, they put out pictures, they hold events. And so they're very, very aware, more than other industries, they're very aware of media. And so I think really they were obsessed with us from the day I started, and they copy us. They're competing with us in a way for attention. We have a Facebook strategy and they have a Facebook strategy, and so I think they're very, very aware of what we and other media companies are doing, and in a way are trying to create their own media companies so that their supporters can just go to them and don't have to, and won't go to us and won't learn anything that they don't want them to hear.
For you, what's the essence and the basic philosophy for the whole BuzzFeed?
I guess about two things. One is just reaching as many people as possible, scale, and then the other is impact. Is how these pieces, these pieces of content, we're not trying to make kind of like art to hang on the wall of a museum. We're trying to create things that are going to have some impact in the world, whether that's connecting you to your girlfriend because you shared something on Facebook, or whether it's getting somebody fired at the NSA because we revealed, that they had some illegal or unethical arrangement, and these are, or whether it's like providing recipes that you will cook.
And what kind of things make content viral? So there are some secrets, or just like accident?
They're both. So they're sort of obvious things. It has to be things that people have a reason to share, not just to read. Because it moves them, or because it makes them laugh, or because it can says something about them.
You based in text before, text and the picture, and then move to video. It's very difficult for team.
I think our view is that we want to do things that work across different mediums. So, and one thing the web is great for is being able to do things quickly and experiment and learn. And then our video team will often take things that have worked on the web and then figure out how to adapt them into a video form, and that's a lot of what we've done. My colleague Zay Frank in Los Angeles runs BuzzFeed Motion Pictures. That people come out of film school and they've learned to make a film with the beginning and the middle and the end and this whole arc, and that what he always tells them is on the web it's just end, end, end.
How to manage the global team?
I don't know. We're working on it. But basically, I think our philosophy is to have it be as decentralized as possible. That we're not trying to kind of command and control from the center. We have great tools. We have a lot of stories that are valuable in different countries and different languages, and knowledge that works across places. But also, we need to have very strong local teams. We hired Janine Gibson, this very great British editor in London, to keep building that team.
So in the different countries, and the readers. Reading pattern, reading behavior, quite different.
The content is different, the tone is different, the language, but also in English, just the tone.
Similar or different?
Different. Our UK editor once said to me that the thing is that British humor is very different, and I said, how is it different? And he said, well, it's better. British humor is much more negative. Americans can be very celebratory and optimistic about things.
How people here, how your colleagues think about China's social media, or it's quite.
I think we're
like a Mars, quite different from.
Yes, yeah. No, I think we're totally fascinated by it, and it feels it offers this very, I think, kind of vibrant window into just what's happening in China today. Yesterday, I think it was that people had sex in Uniqlo. And that was what was going on. No, we have a reporter who all she...
you know the story.
Of course. And that's a story that anybody in the world is interested in, not just Chinese people. This Brother Orange story where an editor... it was a really fascinating thing to see the Chinese social media just take this story and make it huge, and to see one of our editors become like this cultural phenomenon in China in ways that we frankly didn't totally understand what was going on, and he didn't totally understand what was going on, but kind of rolled with it. This was for us an interesting story about that my colleague, he had his phone stolen, and pretty soon he had all these pictures from China in the cloud, and he just really wrote a story that was like, here is a strange thing that happened to me. I didn't think about it more. And then Chinese social media users just turned it into a huge thing in China. And Matt, who wrote it, became like a star in the Chinese media. And he loved it and, engaged it and just made videos and talked to his Chinese fans. And then but still didn't expect when he arrived at the airport to be met by dozens of photographers and cars with his face on them, and being connected both by technology and by this underground network of stolen iPhone dealers.
So what's the next big idea for the media business?
This is what your movie is about. The internet. There was this, for us, I think, 10 or 15 year period of the open web that I think you never fully had in China, but where, it was totally level, where there weren't powerful players dictating what would win and what would lose. It was totally, purely competitive. We feel like we, were able to build this company out of doing things people love in this very open, level playing field, and that the web is changing, and now it's much more fragmented, and there are all these different apps and different platforms, and people are spending less and less time just on the open web, and so it's just becoming a much more complicated ecosystem and one in which people, I don't know, there's a risk that people are less openly connected and more in little sort of boxes.
What's the major obstacle or challenge now for you?
Some of the older media got very close to the people they covered, and I think a lot of the newer media, some of it at least, is more independent. So I'm very optimistic about the future of journalism.
And the future of BuzzFeed?
The future of BuzzFeed is increasingly global. We are spending, we're increasingly thinking about ourselves not as an American company with a couple of other outlets, but as a global news company. And they're finding, I think, have been surprised by how much culture is global now. I mean, the dress was this great example of this image that of a dress that was either some people saw as blue and black and some people saw as white and gold. And one of the really interesting things about that is, an editor who was just sitting over there, someone on Tumblr messaged it to her and said, I saw this dress at a wedding and all my friends are confused. Can you put it on BuzzFeed and help us figure it out? And so we did, and it just blew up instantly. And it not just here, but Twitter sometimes will publish these little maps of how something spreads. And first, it'll light up in the center, and then here, and it spreads around the world. And with this, it just lit up everywhere at the same time. These networks, Facebook, Twitter, are so fully international. There's a possibility, at least, of a kind of simultaneous global culture sometimes that's pretty interesting. There are also, obviously, these linguistic changes around emoji, that there are elements of kind of a global of a sort of of a global language that are pretty interesting. That an editor in Mumbai might notice and write about, and then the Paris editor is also interested in, and that we can there are advantages for us to having people in all these places.